Right, welcome back to another vid. This is going to be another vinyl pickup vid. I've got 5 altogether. There's a bit of spine view. Don't know if you got a little sneak preview of any of the titles there. But yeah, I'm going to make this like a two-parter. I'm obviously going to do this part of the video now, clearly, and then maybe I'll do the second part at the end of the week or maybe next week. I think there's 5 here. Let me just double check. Yeah, 5 here. And I think there's probably 5 or 6 which I'll put on next week's vid as well. Or maybe later this week, whenever it is. So, yeah, without further ado, let's crack on and talk a little bit about them. So the first one up is by a guy called Stephen A. Clark. It's his, well, actually, I was going to say it's his debut album. I'm not entirely certain about that. I think it's his debut album when it comes to a major record label, or major-ish. It's quite small, but I mean major-ish record label in Canada, I think it's based. But I think he'd released some kind of independent stuff going back. So it's kind of his debut album, kind of isn't, I guess, whichever way you want to look at it. Don't rely on me for information on fact, just resort to Google it. Wikipedia Stephen A. Clark, you'll find the truth there. But no, I'm pretty certain it's his first proper album. And like I say, it's called The Lonely Roller. This is a limited edition version, and which includes a download, it says on there. But most releases do these days, which I think is really good. I mean, I love the physical entity, you know, the physical aspect of having something for your money, being able to put it on a shelf, as you can see behind. Just appreciate it, pick it up, look at the artwork, look at the liner notes, open it up if it's a gatefold. I love that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you know, you can't stop time. You can't stop the clock. And technology moves on. And I think by including a digital download code, like many of them do, as I say, I think that's a really good idea. I think it makes vinyl still relevant, because otherwise I think it would be kind of harking back to the past too much. But by including the code, I think that's very clever, because it introduces new people to vinyl who maybe admittedly want to jump on a bit of a bandwagon because it's cool and all that kind of stuff. But also it pleases the older guys as well, or the traditionalists who, like I say, want something for their money. So I like the fact it's got a downloadable code as well. Although in this day and age, I mean, do people really do it legally? Just download it illegally, don't you? I don't, obviously. But yeah, anyway, The Lonely Roller, a really good album. Now, I first was introduced to Stephen A. Clark going back probably mid to late last year, and I heard a track, it's the link I'm going to use in the description box, to a song called Can't Have. And I thought it was outstanding. When I first heard it, it sounded like, without question, it would have to be the track to open up this video. If a song played, it would be this one, or that one, or this one, that one, whichever, called Can't Have. Because it's a really strong opening, a really good video, I really like it. Think of, his style is like R&B meets a bit of rock, with some pop, with some soul, that kind of vibe. It's really good. Some other good songs on there. I like Not You, and also the opening track to the album, which is, as the title is, Lonely Roller. So, yeah, and I really like the cover as well. You know, when I first saw it, I didn't know where Stephen A. Clark was from. It's actually from Miami. But I saw that, and it looked like some kind of beach hut in, like, Bournemouth or somewhere. No, maybe it is. I don't know. But he's definitely from Florida. So, and there's the back as well. Again, apologies for the glare. I'm going to have to do something about the light that I record these in. Or maybe it's just the camera angle. And what doesn't help as well, when it comes to glare, is the fact that obviously I have these in these protective sleeves. So that makes the light shine off a little bit more. So that's that. Now, next up is a band called Tan Lines. Now, this is their second album. And I just think it's self-titled. Oh, no, it's not self-titled. I think it's called Highlights. Doesn't even say it on there. It does say it on there. You can't see it because the writing's really tiny. But yeah, their second album called Highlights. Again, this is another band, a duo that I was introduced to going back sometime last year on a podcast. The track I heard was called Slipping Away. And I thought that was really good. It really had me hooked straight away as soon as I heard it. And I had to buy it. Now, at the time of hearing that song, the album hadn't been released. So I basically pre-ordered it, I think on Amazon. And then eventually, fast forward a few months, it actually came out, and I got to own it, and here it is. Another really good track is called Pieces. There's others as well. Obviously, I'm going to put a track in the description box, as I always say. So please feel free to check those out, because it may introduce you to a new song or a new band and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure I'll hint at that at the end of the video as well. But I think it's a really good idea, you know, to put links in, because, you know, I mean, maybe you've never heard of these guys, and you may click on the link, you may really like it and become a fan. You never know. You never know until you actually try it. So But yeah, so think of these guys as like kind of experimental rock or pop, synth pop, indie rock, that kind of feel to it. If you like that, it'll be right up your street. Check it out below. And also the thing about these guys as well, I think they're from New York. They're both in their kind of early to mid 40s. Now, you're probably thinking, so what? And that's a good point. So what? But this is only their second album. I think the other one was only 2012, 2013. Now, they have done stuff in the past, other minor bands I think they've been in. But in terms of actually making it, you know, it's kind of funny in a way. It goes to show that there's hope. There's hope yet for everyone out there. If these guys can't really break it into their sort of very early 40s, then we've all got a chance. We can all be famous one day, maybe. So that's that. 2 down, 3 to go. Now, next up is a band called the Lambrettas. The Lambrettas are a band from the late 70s and the early 80s. It's basically mod revival music. The immediate comparison that I'm going to have to use is The Jam. Because when you hear a song, which one in particular? Page 3. It's the opening track on side 2. Page 3 is just basically, it sounds like something that Paul Weller would have written on a Jam record back in the late 70s or very early 80s. Now, the Lambrettas only had 2 albums. The first one charted, which was this one, which is called Beat Boys in the Jet Age. And the second album, I can't remember what you call it, I think it was released in 1981. This came out in 1980. And that, I don't think, charted. It didn't do very well, and they just disappeared faster than they appeared, quite frankly. But the other song, apart from Page 3, which people may know the Lambrettas for, that's such a mod revival band name as well, isn't it, the Lambrettas? But the other song would be Poison Ivy. Now, when I first heard it, quite a while ago, to be fair, I didn't really think too much of it. It didn't remind me so much of something that the Jam would do, but maybe something more that the Specials may do, or something like that. It was more kind of like ska-based or a Madness. But as I've got a little bit older, I do like it, but I definitely prefer Page 3. If you like something like, so to speak, not Page 3 from The Sun. Do they still even do Page 3 in The Sun? There's this carry-on, wasn't there, a couple of years ago or something, but they were going to stop doing it. I don't know, lost touch. Living in America, I've just lost touch with what's going on in many aspects of British life, but I do try, where possible, to keep in touch. But anyway, I digress. So, I can't remember, I've completely thrown myself there. But it's a good album, with some decent tracks. The highlights would be Poison Ivy and Page 3, but it really annoys me. I was going to say something interesting there. Can't have been that interesting because I've forgotten it. But yeah, their second album, and this was their first album, and they only released 2 altogether, and then they disappeared, much like many bands did back then. So that was that. 2 left. First up, out of the 2 left, is an artist called Little Boots. Now, Little Boots, her real name is Victoria Hesketh, I believe. She's in her early 30s. I seem to be obsessed with people's ages after talking about those guys in the 40s. So yeah, early 30s. I think she's released maybe 2 or 3 albums. I'm pretty certain this is the 3rd one. So think of things like, again, it's going to be like a synth pop, dance kind of beat to it, a bit R&B, a bit of, what else would you say, kind of just electropop dance kind of music. And I love as well the cover, not just the colour in the background, kind of a purpley blue, but I love her hair as well. I think it looks great. It reminds me, if anyone remembers on British TV, speaking of Britain, Dempsey and Makepeace, Glynis Barber, that was the actress, who basically had this haircut. So it's a throwback to the 80s. And speaking of the 80s, one of the tracks, in fact, it was the first track that I heard off this album. It's called The Game. It's on part 2, or on side 2, track number 3 on side 2. Now, it hasn't been released yet, and probably won't be. It certainly hasn't been released yet as a single, but it's one of my favourite tracks on the album. Not just because it's the first one I heard, but it's a real throwback to the 80s. And I was astonished to figure out, or to find out, that it came out in, well, this is a new record, it came out, I think, September time, so 2015. And, yeah, astonished to find out it was a new song, because it sounded like something that kind of goes back many, many years. But I really like it in a sort of a cheesy way. But if you like that dance kind of synth pop, electro pop music, I think you're really going to like this. I don't see many people talking about her, you know, from what I've seen anyway online, and even people I've talked to. Obviously, some people are aware of her, but not too many people, which has surprised me, because it's a really good record, and it's the only one I have of hers, but I'm definitely going to go back and check out the other 2, I think it's 2, which she's released so far. And other tracks on there which I really like are Working Girl, No Pressure's really good, what else? The Game, as I say. There's so many. There's some very, very strong songs on this record, so check it out. Last but not least, I was absolutely staggered to be reminded, really, that this record is 20 years old. This is the, as it says here, the newly remastered 20th anniversary edition, and it's I Should Coco by Supergrass. And staggering, because I remember buying this when it came out. Well, I said 20 years, 21 years now, technically, because, 2016. But I remember buying this in 1995 as a teenager, 16, 17, whatever I would have been. And I absolutely loved it. It was a really good record, a really strong record. And one of the really amazing things about it, and it's not even now, in hindsight that I look back and I'm shocked by it. I was kind of shocked and surprised at the time. But the singer, Gaz Coombs, who incidentally has the same birthday as me, I think he's 2 or 3 years older, but March the 8th is his birthday. He wrote basically most of these tracks, if not all of them, when he was around about 15. I know Supergrass, or the band Supergrass, were called the Jennifers. I think it was before the bass player, Mickey somebody or other, can't remember his last name. I nearly said Mickey Rourke there. It's definitely not Mickey Rourke, although it kind of looks a bit like him. But yeah, they were in a band called the Jennifers. There's Gaz Coombs and, is it Danny Goffey? Goffey or Goffney, the drummer. So, yeah, to think that most of these songs were written by him, Gaz Coombs, when he was 15, it's absolutely astonishing because there's some great ones on here. I mean, the obvious ones such as All Right, but then things like Man-Sized Rooster, Caught by the Fuzz, Strange Ones, Time, Lenny, Lose It, Sitting Up Straight. It's an album of really strong material, a very, very good album, and as I say, basically astonishing to think that they were written essentially by a 15, 16-year-old kid, albeit that would have been like the raw version, and then he mastered it, only about a year or so later, 2 years later, whenever, when the record came out. So, yeah, a real landmark, pivotal album in that kind of Britpop scene. Everybody, and rightly so, talks about Oasis and talks about Blur, because, they are ultimately what Britpop is all about. But I think people like this, you often forget, how important bands like Supergrass were, and many others as well, like Cast, and even things like the Blue Tones and Pulp, whoever else. I can go on for ages, but many, many bands. But yeah, absolutely astonished that this is 21 years old, and it's a really strong record even now. It's almost timeless in a way. And I like on the front here, I've not listened to it yet, and it's still kind of sealed inside, so I'm not going to get it out. But basically it comes with a limited edition, free one-sided 7-inch vinyl. I don't know what it is because it doesn't say on there. I have seen it, I did take it out, but I didn't play it. I know it's got Supergrass on there, of course, but I think there was a track from another band on there. Unless maybe it's from the Jennifers, or something like that. But either way, I'll have to check that out. And it's a nice little addition, a nice little bonus to the 20th anniversary special. So there we go. Just the 5 records. There's a little side view as well. I always like the different colours. It just makes it look a little bit nicer, a little bit more artistic and aesthetically pleasing on the eye, I guess. So this is part 1. Part 2, I think I'm not going to make it today. I'll make that video maybe, like I say, later this week or possibly next week. And yeah, so until then, oh, of course, check out the links below. I'm going to put a link to some of the songs, not necessarily the best songs, and that's very subjective anyway, but just some songs that I like, which maybe could introduce you to some of these bands or artists for the first time. So, like I say, until my next vid, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.